Good evening and welcome to the Greg Thompson Sports Show. This week we are going to whip around the NFL in week 17, all the crazy games, how it impact all the playoff races and all the other things that are going on. But first, a big thank you to our sponsors over at Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to check them out. Go on over to Underdog Fantasy, make a deposit, and they will match everything up to your first $500 if you use promo code COVER1. So if your fantasy football team did not bring home a championship today, you can still go draft a new team, have some fun, be able to enjoy yourself, and check it out. All kinds of good things there beyond football. You can go to basketball, baseball, all the other things, but make sure you check them out, help us out, and support our sponsors. So first, let's jump right in. We'll go to Thursday night with the Flaccasance, the Flacco Renaissance. I don't know if I'm going to try to keep workshopping that Flaccasance. I think that could work. Joe Flacco was ridiculous. He had like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns at halftime. The Browns absolutely just boat raced the Jets. They were up 27-7, 34-14. Pretty much cruise control the whole second half. They didn't do a whole lot from there on, but the Cleveland Browns have clinched a playoff spot and clinch the number 5 seed. They can't catch the Ravens for the division, but they cannot be caught for the top wild card spot. And a team that had 4 different starting quarterbacks this year, I don't think anyone expected that. They started 4 different quarterbacks and clinched the best wild card spot of any team in the AFC. Really, really impressive. Joe Flacco looks fantastic right now. Still throwing some balls up there out for grabs amongst an awful lot of different people, but they're falling in the right hands right now. People are making plays. David Njoku looks fantastic. That defense still looks awesome. Myles Garrett is unblockable right now, and just took care of business, did all the things they needed to. So I don't think there was a lot of things this game could have impacted the Bills, even if the Browns had have lost. They were already in pretty good shape, but obviously did not help support anything that direction either. For the Saturday night game, the Cowboys beat the Lions. A lot of people spent a lot of time talking about the end of this game. The Lions came down and scored. They scored a touchdown with 23 seconds left in the game to bring it to 19-20. They then went for 2 to go for the win. Dan Campbell said he told his team prior to the game, or prior to the drive, that, hey, we're going to drive down, we're going to score, and we're going to go for 2, and we're going to win this game right now. They go down, they get ready, they run, they bring an extra offensive lineman on. They have both their existing offensive linemen, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker, over by the referee. Their extra offensive lineman comes on, and according to everything you can tell, Taylor Decker declares eligible, but the referee says that number 70 has declared eligible. They then run the play. They throw the pass to Taylor Decker, which, in fairness to the Cowboys, they didn't cover him because he wasn't declared eligible. And he caught the 2-point conversion, which should have made it 21-20 Lions and been a win. All hell broke loose after that. It was crazy. From what we can tell, it kind of looked like the referee, Brad Allen, assumed that the extra offensive lineman declared eligible, similar to how the Bills do with David Edwards. When that extra guy comes on, he's the one who normally declares eligible. His hands are near his chest or belly area. I don't think he did a demonstrable motion to declare. He didn't say anything. And Taylor Decker said, I'm declaring eligible, to Brad Allen. There's been a lot of debate about what should have happened afterwards when they didn't declare Decker eligible. Should they have ran a different play? Should he have not gone out for the pass? I don't know what should have happened. It got all crazy. They called a penalty because of it, so they went back and tried it again. Dan Campbell still tried to go for 2 from the 7. Maybe he should have kicked at that point and gone to overtime. But it was a mess. And now it's been announced that Brad Allen and his crew will not be refereeing any playoff games, which is good because they also were the ones who messed up the crazy pass interference play between Green Bay and Kansas City as well. So really poor season. Officiating has not been great overall around the league, and that's just a prime example of why. As far as games that did impact the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens destroyed the Miami Dolphins 56-19. In this game, Raheem Mostert was already held out, injured. Tyreek Hill left and came back in at one point. Tua Tagovailoa left the game with a throwing shoulder injury. We haven't heard an update there. Sadly, Bradley Chubb was carted off while it was 49-19. I don't know why all their starters were still in when it was 49-19. Bradley Chubb tore his ACL and got carted off. Just a really weird spot for Miami. They get throttled. They lose based on the Buffalo Bills defeating the New England Patriots. That makes next week in Miami the AFC East Division Championship game. The winner of the game not only wins the AFC East, they also will be the number 2 seed and host a first and potentially second round playoff game if they win both of those games. They will have home field advantage beyond the number 1 seed Ravens. Huge opportunity and a big swing back and forth. The winner will likely host one of the Colts or the Steelers in that game. And the loser will go to Kansas City as the away team as a 6 seed. Although the Bills have a couple other scenarios where they may need to get some other things to fall their way in order to make it. So we'll talk through those in a moment here. But again, the Ravens lock up the number 1 seed. They don't have anything to play for next week. They're already the number 1 seed. No one can catch them. And they will have a game next week hosting the Steelers, who need to win to get in. Super interesting choice by Harbaugh there, knowing he has a bye week again the week after that. That's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. I would assume anyone unhealthy is going to rest, and he may sit some other folks, but that's a long wait. That's a long time off in between hosting a game in the division round. So that'll be interesting to see how he handles it. But the Dolphins now have to win next week to win the division, although they have already locked up a playoff game. So depending on some of these injuries, it'll be interesting to see how Mike McDaniel handles that as well. A game that, could have mattered a little bit for the NFC. The Atlanta Falcons continue to find ways to lose. They get throttled by the Chicago Bears. The Bears, Justin Fields continuing to put up good film for someone. I don't think it's the Bears, but the more he keeps winning, the more interesting it gets. I assume that the Panthers' number 1 overall pick is going to go to the Bears, and they're going to pick a quarterback. But Justin Fields is either increasing his trade value or making it maybe possible that they trade down. I don't think so. Their GM did not draft him, and they're going to be able to get probably a pretty good bounty for him. Maybe he goes to Atlanta, the team they played today. But Atlanta had a chance to hang around in their division. He did not do so. They get a loss. In a game that did impact the Bills were rooting for the Raiders here. The Colts hang on and win. The Colts had a good lead early. They were up 20-10. The Raiders did fight back and give themselves a chance in this game with an onside kick towards the end and a Devontae Adams touchdown. But unfortunately, they were not able to come back. They fall to the Colts 23-20. The Colts, if the playoffs started today, the Colts would be the 7 seed. The Texans are also 9-7. The Steelers are also 9-7. So all fighting for those spots and trying to win some of those different scenarios. Again, the Bills are in a win and you're in, but if the Bills lose, they will fall to 6-6 in conference. They would lose the tiebreaker to virtually all those teams. So the Colts, again, they are in a win and you're in scenario next week. We'll see how that pans out. They are going to be in a situation where, obviously they're also facing a team with the Texans who are fighting to win. So that one is not a guarantee. The Texans are looking to be able to fight for all the other scenarios. They need to happen the other direction and trying to win their division. The Titans and Jaguars also play, so we'll go through some of those in a moment. Speaking of the Jaguars, they took care of business against Panthers. The Panthers were never remotely competitive in this game. The Jaguars, didn't even play great and just continued to kind of pull away. 4 field goals, 2 touchdowns, never really in any risk of losing here, but not a dominant performance. But this was with CJ Beathard. We'll see if obviously Trevor Lawrence is able to play next week or going into the playoffs. But they play the Titans next week and are in a win and you're in situation. They would lock up the division with a win. Their competition here, the Titans this week played against the Texans, didn't make a ton of mistakes, but just could not get anything moving. The Texans, are able to comfortably win. Obviously, needed CJ Stroud back, looked like a different team with CJ Stroud, and comfortably pulled away here, keeping their hopes alive. They have a chance to be able to fight for a couple different scenarios of what they're going to try to get themselves into. But it'll be interesting to watch to see what the Texans can do, and obviously a very exciting team going forward to root for in the future. They have a really bright young foundation to be able to go towards. The Los Angeles Rams almost coughed up this game against the Giants. They gave up a 94-yard punt return at the end of the game, and the Giants went for the win with a 2-point conversion. They got to stop. The Rams looked like they were going to just be in control of this game, but then a long play, Tyrod Taylor, Bills fans know, he dropped one of his, patented, beautiful arching deep passes over, and this one was caught by Darius Slayton, takes it in for an 80-yard touchdown. They still give up another score after that, but then they get a 94-yard punt return. So shout out to the Giants to continue fighting and going for, a competitive end of the season. The Rams have clinched a playoff spot with their win. They are at 9-7. They're in as a wild card. We'll see where they end up. They could be a 6 or a 7 seed, but they are in currently in the playoffs to be able to fight forward. Speaking of games when, Bills fans were not maybe happy with the ugly win against the Patriots, go talk to Eagles fans. The Eagles were huge favorites over the Cardinals, who had nothing to play for, who were actually in position as the number 2 draft pick. Their win here actually helped the Patriots with a loss today, put the Patriots from the 4th pick all the way back to the 2nd pick in the draft. So again, when we assume the outcomes of these games and that nobody's trying and they're tanking, the players are not tanking. The players are trying to win all the time. That's what their number 1 priority is and what they care about. The players are trying to win at all times. And today was a great example. The Eagles at one point were up 21-6. They had a 28-21 lead with possession of the ball. And the Cardinals just kept fighting back. They kept fighting back into the game and being able to get themselves back into it, punched in a score with 30 seconds left to be able to win the game and to pull this out. This knocks the Eagles out of first place in the NFC East. The Cowboys took back possession of the NFC East, and the Eagles are now a wild card team. So just a wild ending to some of these games. In what was basically a NFC South playoff matchup, the Saints beat the Buccaneers to keep themselves alive. They tied that. The Buccaneers, oddly, still have the tiebreakers to be able to have the division lead based on win percentage in common games. So the Saints right now would be on the outside looking in, but have given themselves a chance in the final week where if they beat the Falcons and the Buccaneers lose to the Panthers, they'd be able to get in. The Buccaneers are in a pretty enviable position. They are in a win in your in spot with the Panthers. So that gives them a chance to be able to take care of business. And they'll just be rooting for a Seahawks loss, where if the Seahawks were to lose to the Cardinals, who again were playing today and playing tough, they beat the Eagles, they will be in a position to be able to get into the playoffs. So a couple different things to root for there. But the Saints keep their hopes alive. Tampa Bay still looks pretty good, but they'll have a chance going forward. The 49ers, actually were competitive with the Commanders for a little bit. Washington was hanging in this game. They tied it 10-10, but down the stretch, obviously the 49ers are just the better team and pulled away. They win. They lock up the number 1 seed in the in the NFC. They're going to be in position. They have the bye. They have nothing to play for next week, so they'll be in great position here. That will help. The Rams don't have anything to play for either, so that'll be a nothing game next week. Commanders, their loss keeps them floating from a draft position standpoint. We'll see where those tiebreakers fall in the final week and where those draft positions are, but I think they'll be picking maybe 3rd in the draft. In a game that Bills fans were rooting for here, the Seahawks just kept giving the Steelers, opportunities to lock up this game. The Steelers tried to let the Seahawks back in this game a couple times, but the Pittsburgh defense played tough. They continued to get pressure on Geno Smith, multiple strip sack fumbles that kind of really put this away towards the end, as the Seahawks had a chance to get back into this game a couple different times. They locked it up and were able to take care of business. So the Steelers are now in a win and you're in position for one of the wild card spots here, and playing against a Ravens team that is outside of any reason to play in Week 18. So the Steelers have a good chance in this final week of the season to be able to get a win they need, as the Colts are playing a game Houston team and they are playing a Ravens team that doesn't have anything to play for. So an enviable position for Pittsburgh in their spot. One other game that did go the Bills' way, the Kansas City Chiefs not only locked up the AFC West, but they eliminated the Cincinnati Bengals from contention. So that Bengals-Browns game has no meaning in Week 18. They have nothing to play for in either spot. The Bengals are eliminated from the playoffs. The Browns are locked into the 5th seed. That is basically their bye week next week. So that Browns-Bengals game has no meaning. It's just kind of going through the motions. The Chiefs did not look great. They ended this game on 6 straight field goal drives. So they were down by 10 and ended up winning by 8 without scoring a touchdown. So that's impressive. 6 straight field goals. Shout out to anybody who had Harrison Butker in their fantasy league. They turned out pretty well today. The Bengals did really well to even get to this point at 8-8 and to have a chance to be able to kind of hang in this position. So shout out to them. Really good opportunity for them to be able to make anything of a season without Joe Burrow, but it comes to an end here in Week 17. So they'll end it on that note. And one other game that didn't have a ton of impact here. The Broncos get a win with the Chargers. I think technically still keep themselves. No, they were eliminated as well. Too many of the other teams won to be able to get there. So even though they won, they are also eliminated from contention and have nothing to play for in their final game of the season against the Raiders, who are also eliminated, and all the other things that go with those. So we'll switch over here and play around with a couple of the different ones. Obviously, most of the different pieces here this week, made it pretty simple for the Bills and for the different teams in play. So it's pretty straightforward from a Bills standpoint. They are in, obviously, win and you're in. So if they win and beat the Miami Dolphins, it's very, very clean to be able to get themselves into this spot. So if the Bills win next week, let's take a look. I'm just going to assume the Packers win tonight. That one doesn't really affect anything in the NFC. Will go, or the AFC will go over here. So again, if the Bills win, they jump up to the 2 seed. There's a couple different scenarios here. If the Texans beat the Colts, they can take the division. But again, the Jaguars are also playing against the Titans, who don't have a lot to play for. So I'm assuming that's going to go there. I'm going to assume the Jags beat the Titans. That one, I don't think there's a ton of mystery. It'll help if the Titans do. If the Titans win, it will actually eliminate the Jaguars, and the Bills would be in the playoffs no matter what. So a lot of people will be rooting for the Titans. I'm not going to count on that. The Chiefs don't have anything to play for. That one doesn't really matter. So we'll see. It doesn't matter who wins between the Chargers or the Chiefs. That one's already locked up. Again, we already talked about it. The Browns and the Bengals. That game doesn't matter. Not going to change anything. Because the Ravens aren't trying and don't have anything to play for, I'm going to assume the Steelers are going to win. And the rest of the AFC games here, I think I have a winner pick for all of them. So the couple different scenarios here. If the Bills lose, they are going to need either a Ravens team that isn't trying to beat the Steelers. That gets the Bills in as a 7th seed. They would need a Titans team that is doesn't have anything to play for to beat the Jaguars. That would get them in. Those are the two simplest situations. There's some ties that could play out, but we don't really see ties all that often anymore. So I'm not expecting it here at the end. So again, those games, I think it comes down pretty clearly to the Bills winning. They get the 2 seed. If they lose, I don't think it's crazy that one of those other games goes the other way. But the good news is they'll know that ahead of time. And I actually like the fact that they're going to be in a, win and you're in mentality as the game goes here. I don't think they're going to have a ton of reason to be able to change their mentality. They've been playing with like their playoffs started 4 weeks ago. They won all 4 of those games. They haven't all been pretty. The Patriots game today, the Chargers game, those have been pretty games. They're playing a banged up Dolphins team who also has a reason to play. But I don't think it's crazy. So it's not as simple as Andy's saying here. If we lose, we are out, but it's very possible. I think it's even likely that if they lose, they would be out. So we'll see, how they approach it, where they go with it. But the Ravens backups beating the Steelers, or a Titans team that doesn't have a ton to play for, beating a Jaguars team that likely gets Trevor Lawrence back. Neither of those are really good odds. So the Bills are in an incredibly weird position of, if they win, they'll be the 2 seed. They'll host the Colts or the Texans. I think is the most likely of those scenarios, is the Colts or the Texans. The winner of Colts Texans host that game in Buffalo, or if they lose in Miami to the Dolphins, would likely miss the playoffs. And that's just a crazy swing between those 2 scenarios. Again, we'll know before the game starts and all the different pieces that come in, but I love the idea that they have to play with that back against the wall mentality, and with that approach of, winning you're in, losing you're out, like it literally is the playoffs. I think that's a really, fun way to go into the game. There's no mistakes, there's no excuses, there's nothing else that can come of any of those things there. And they just have to go in and find a way to win, and be able to take care of business, and do what they need to do to be able to get themselves into the playoffs. One other fun thing we can root for is the Patriots to beat the Jets, and to mess up their draft pick. That'll be a fun way to end the season for the Jets, so they don't get the number 1 pick, or don't get a number 2 pick. So again, lots of intrigue next week, but it's pretty simple. The Bills are going to be playing in Miami for the AFC East. If they win, they will be able to go in and host a playoff game, potentially host multiple playoff games, likely host a team. It looks like the most likely scenario is the winner of Houston or Carolina. There's a chance that if Tennessee beats Jacksonville, they could host Pittsburgh in that spot, because the winner of Houston or Indianapolis would then take the division, and Jacksonville would get knocked out. So that would be an incredible turn of events after, at one point, the Bills were, 5-5, 6-6 on the outside looking in, the 11 seed in the playoffs, to jump all the way to the 2 seed and to be able to host multiple playoff games if they're able to find a way to win. It's an incredible turnaround. So we'll see where that goes. Lots of fun stuff to be able to watch for. We'll continue to be here for you with the Greg Thompson Sports Show, recapping the games as they happen and going in. We'll see how that works out next week with the way that the games are, but maybe we'll do it as a playoff preview and set it up with a little bit different structure. So thank you guys very, very much. Help us out. Press that like button. It goes a long ways. I hope everyone has a very happy new year. Safety, health, happiness to you and your families. All of you that have supported us here at Cover One and given us your time and energy. It really, really means the world. You guys have been fantastic to us. We've added some new people. Daniel Harms, John Helmcap are going to be running with Cover One Draft, doing profiles for players and all kinds of weekly shows on the draft as we kind of get into that mode once the playoffs are done. So all kinds of cool stuff to be able to check out. We'll have you covered here at Cover One. A lot of things that we want to be able to thank you guys for, and to be able to help and support us. So thank you very much for your time. On behalf of producer Chris Seth, I'm Greg Thompson. You've been listening to the Greg Thompson Sports Show, and we are out.